On the first Monday of October, the rain came down so hard it blurred the windows of Jefferson Middle School into streaks of gray. Most students dragged themselves through the halls half asleep, clutching backpacks and unfinished homework. But room 214 was different. The warm smell of coffee drifted through the classroom, soft music played from a tiny speaker on the bookshelf, and handwritten notes covered the walls with messages like, "You matter here," and "Every story deserves kindness." That was because Ms. Emily Carter. For 12 years, she had taught 7th grade English in a small town outside Chicago. Students loved her because she remembered things other teachers forgot: birthdays, favorite books, who was afraid of thunderstorms, who pretended to laugh when they were hurting. Emily believed children spoke in ways adults often missed. Some spoke with words, others spoke through silence. That morning, Silence walked into her classroom wearing a faded blue hoodie. Daniel Brooks was 12 years old and almost invisible to the world. He sat in the back corner every day, never causing trouble, never asking for help. His grades had once been excellent, but over the last few months they had slipped badly. He looked tired all the time, like sleep had become a stranger. As students settled into their seats, Emily noticed Daniel flinch when he removed his backpack. His sleeve slid up for only a second, but it was enough. Dark bruises circled his wrist. Her stomach tightened. Daniel quickly pulled the sleeve down and lowered his eyes. Emily had seen bruises before. Some came from sports, some from accidents. But teachers learned to recognize the difference between clumsy and afraid, and Daniel looked afraid. She tried to continue the lesson, but her mind stayed fixed on that brief glimpse of purple and blue against pale skin. Halfway through class, while students worked quietly on a writing assignment, she walked slowly between the desks. When she reached Daniel's table, she crouched beside him gently. "Hey," she whispered, careful not to embarrass him. "You feeling okay today?" Daniel nodded too quickly. "Did something happen to your arm?" His pencil froze. For a moment, Emily thought he might answer. Instead, he shrugged without looking up. "Just fell." It was the automatic response of someone who had practiced it many times. Emily didn't push further. She simply smiled softly. "Well, if you ever need anything, my door stays open after school." Daniel gave a tiny nod, but his eyes stayed fixed on the paper. That should have been the end of it. Many teachers would have reported the bruise immediately and moved on. Emily did file a concern with the school counselor that afternoon, following protocol exactly. But something in her heart told her Daniel needed more than procedures. He needed someone to stay. Over the next 2 weeks, Emily watched carefully. Daniel came to school exhausted almost every day. Sometimes he wore long sleeves even when the classrooms were warm. Sometimes he jumped at sudden noises. Once, when another student accidentally bumped into him, Daniel raised his arms to shield his face before realizing no one intended to hurt him. The sight nearly broke her heart. One Thursday afternoon, Emily noticed Daniel lingering outside room 214 after the final bell. The hallway emptied around him while he stood frozen near the doorway. "You can come in," she said gently. He stepped inside slowly. The classroom was quiet, except for rain tapping against the windows. Daniel swallowed hard. "Miss Carter, can I stay here for a little while?" "Of course." He sat at a desk near the front, while Emily graded papers quietly, pretending not to notice his trembling hands. 20 minutes passed before he finally spoke again. "My mom works nights," he whispered, "and my dad gets angry when she's gone." Emily set her pen down carefully. Daniel stared at the floor. "Sometimes he drinks. Sometimes he says I make everything worse." His voice cracked. "And sometimes," he pulled his sleeve up slightly, revealing more bruises. "Sometimes he grabs me." Emily felt tears sting her eyes, but she kept her voice calm. "Daniel," she said softly, "none of this is your fault." The boy looked shocked, as if no adult had ever said those words before. "He says it is," Daniel whispered. Emily moved closer, keeping her tone steady and warm. "No child deserves to be hurt. Ever." For the first time since she had known him, Daniel started crying. Not loudly, not dramatically, just the silent, exhausted tears of someone who had carried pain alone for far too long. Emily stayed with him until the sobbing slowed. Then she contacted the school counselor and Child Protective Services immediately. It was the hardest call she had ever made, because she knew what came next would change Daniel's life forever. And it did. Authorities investigated quickly. Daniel's mother, shocked and devastated by the truth, admitted she had suspected something was wrong but had been too afraid to confront her husband. Within days, Daniel and his mother were moved into temporary housing away from his father. But the story didn't magically become easy. Daniel stopped speaking much at school again. He blamed himself for breaking apart the family. Other students whispered rumors. His mother struggled financially after leaving her husband. Some nights they slept in shelter. Some mornings Daniel came to school hungry. Emily refused to let him disappear. She quietly organized teachers to donate grocery cards. The school counselor found local programs that helped with housing. Emily spent her own weekends helping Daniel's mother apply for jobs and assistance programs. Still, the biggest change wasn't the food or money. It was consistency. Every morning, Emily greeted Daniel at the classroom door with the same smile. Every Friday, she slipped a handwritten note onto his desk. "Proud of you. You are stronger than you know. Your story isn't over." Slowly, Daniel began changing. He started turning assignments in again. He joined the school art club after Emily discovered he loved drawing. One afternoon, she found him laughing with classmates. A real laugh, bright and unguarded. It was the first time anyone had heard it all year. Months passed. Spring arrived, washing winter from the streets and filling the school courtyard with sunlight. At the end of year assembly, students received awards for academics and leadership. Emily sat with the teachers near the back of the gym, clapping politely as names were announced. Then the principal stepped to the microphone. "This year," he said, "we're introducing a new recognition, the Courage Award." The room quieted. This award goes to a student who faced incredible challenges with honesty, resilience, and heart. Emily felt something stir in her chest as the principal smiled toward the front row. "Daniel Brooks." The gym erupted into applause. Daniel froze in his seat. For one terrifying second, Emily thought he might refuse to walk up there. Then he looked toward room 214's teacher sitting in the back. Emily smiled through tears and nodded. "You can do this." Daniel stood. The applause grew louder as he crossed the stage. His hands shook while accepting the plaque, but then he surprised everyone. He stepped toward the microphone. "When I thought nobody cared about me," he said quietly. One teacher noticed. The gym fell silent. She didn't look away. Emily covered her mouth, tears streaming freely now. Daniel swallowed hard before continuing. "Miss Carter saved my life. There are moments in life that never leave you. For Emily, it was that one. Not because she felt like a hero, but because she realized how powerful a small act of paying attention could be. A question, a conversation, a decision not to ignore someone's pain." Years later, Daniel would graduate college and become a youth counselor for abused children. On the wall of his office, framed beside his diploma, hung one faded note written in blue ink. "Your story isn't over." Because sometimes the people who change the world are not the loudest or richest or strongest. Sometimes they are simply the ones who choose to notice a hurting child and stay.